quite enjoyable to watch,
Quite enjoyable.
unlike our episodes. Welcome. I think it's episode 34.
You have to watch the whole. It is
Our
Thanksgiving,
episodes are
yeah,
Miss Maisel.
as being enjoyable to watch. Only if you watch them and stuff.
I don't know if anybody's going to binge watch our series.
I don't think so. I think it's a bit too much. I think from what I experienced in YouTube and stuff like that, I think 15-minute things and stuff like that. At some point, it'd be good probably just to invest in somebody to go through this and just sort of cut it down into these 15-minute sort of things. I think that's digestible for anybody, but I think it's way too long for most people. Unless if I went out and killed 5 people, I think we could get full viewership out of the whole 31 episodes for the whole time.
Yeah, they'd be sort of going over and saying, what makes him so effed up?
Right.
Let's listen to his talk.
Right.
That kind of thing. Because it's funny how murderers and stuff have their own, that cult of celebrity, that weirdness that I actually partake in. You see Charlie Manson, interview from 78, I'll watch that. But if it's some great civil rights person, that made a speech and said, we always search out the most extreme of things to see how does that side live. What if someone talking about the wonderfulness.
Yeah. I agree, and I think people would be very sort of like forensic about looking at the videos, looking for those clues, right? Like if I went and out and mass murdered 30 people right now, it would be. But short of that, I don't think I'm that interesting. I don't think I have that many things to say. I think you could compress a lot of it down, and then there would be some sort of truths that would be self-evident. But generally, I don't. I'm always balancing the narcissism I have about coming out and doing this stuff, and then sort of thinking just what you would think, I'd rather stand out in the background and not sort of be blabbing. I'm not a blabber at all. I mean,
I know.
This is the most I ever talk. Probably these 31 episodes is the most I've ever said. Even in a week, I don't think I say as much as I do in an hour here.
When I first proposed that we do this, because I think that Byron's art, music, deserves to be out there, even if it's just for us. I was quite surprised, truthfully, when I approached him and said, this is what I'd like to do, this little, series, almost for fun, just for us. But he agreed to do it. I was like blown away because A, he doesn't listen to his own music. B, doesn't take anything he does seriously, he himself. But I was overjoyed to hear that he was willing to do this. And I think both of us at this point, it's almost therapy for us.
Yes.
You get to unload.
It is good. I'm kind of surprised at myself. I never really have that much to say, but it turns out I do in an hour. I wish I could compress this even more. But I guess the worst thing I can say about all the stuff that I've done is probably too much Byron, and this just becomes too much. When I think how much more music that we have to go through that I've done, God willing, if you want to go through some more albums that I've done and stuff like that. But I mean, this can go on and on and on and on, and it just becomes way overwhelming in one way. But I guess, as they say, it is what it is.
Well, it comes back to your point, and I agree that these long form things are fine for us. And the 6 people in history might find it interesting. But I'd mentioned a few episodes back that I'd like to kind of try to change the format. Not that I'm getting bored of it, but agreed. Joe Rogan has a great, it's not he invented it, but you do a 3-hour podcast and you can break it down into 30 different bits on like a little bit on Hitler's murder or whatever. Whatever. Little tiny segments. And I think that's what we'll start doing here. Big thing for me, there was 2 things here. It was exploring Byron's work and his output and just having like a sort of stake in the sand somewhere to say we were here. But the other thing was to talk about creativity. For us, it's mostly musical creativity. I mean, I'm now a video guy, and so is Byron. But to me, when you boil it all down, it comes down to music and our love of music, growing up, hearing bands we loved and not knowing how they did it. the mystery of that, wanting to uncover how you do certain things, or how, even then at that point when we knew all the tools and we're using everything, it's how do we do this now, like anybody else who starts down the studio path. So that for me was the two main reasons of doing this, your music, and then just us talking about creativity and where does it come from? How do people get it? Like, what's the spark?
Selfishly, I think as much as I think I know what I know, it's been a good experience. I think I've learned definitely some stuff us doing these 31 hours. Just the fact that I've been listening to stuff that I've done that I would never have listened to otherwise, and being able to talk about it and sort of go over these things and sort of collate sort of this musical sort of little journey I've been on. And yeah, I think I look at my music differently now. I think when I approach a song, I think I know what I should not do, and I know what I should do. Sort of less of me is always a good thing. However, I still do my stuff on my own now. I wish I was in a band in a way. I think I wish I could sort of be part of other people's music. I think I would be more successful, I think all my stuff is too much, and it's just too much for me. So yeah, if I could do it again, I'd probably be in a band now. But I'm just sort of doing my own stuff now, but it's sort of less of me now. A lot shorter stuff.
You say that, but I think, we always kind of desire what's over the fence, and then I say, careful what you wish for, because I know, that you would not be happy, even if the entire band effort was all your stuff, and I just know you can't go out and play the same song more than twice or three times before you've had it.
Yeah, well, I would say being in a band in a studio, yeah, sort of playing live, especially in a pop band. Again, I wish I'd played well enough that I could be in a jazz band. Then I could go out and play live, and it's very sort of improvisational, and that's part of what I really enjoy about music, sort of making stuff up. I enjoy making stuff up in the studio, but being in a pop band, to me, and especially when people are, you hear a lot of people, and God love the audience, a lot of people just want to hear the way it's done on the records and stuff like that. And so you can play 10 shows with your songs, and you got to play it. So it doesn't become what you're doing in the studio, right? You're sort of miming yourself. You become sort of, as I always thought, like a Vegas act when you're sort of doing stuff. It becomes very boring to me very quickly. You're right.
Yeah, and a lot of ferociously original artists that I know feel the same way, that they don't want to keep representing their stuff the same way. It's funny how, for me, I'm not a songwriter. I'm a parts guy. I'm like your parts guy. But I see that. I see what people want to hear. Like, I want to hear that song the way I remember it in my youth as well. I have a foot in both worlds, the creative guys who always are pushing the boundaries. I like that, and I get it. But I also get the people that go to the shows and go, I want to hear that song the same way. And don't forget, it's the first time they're experiencing it. That artist has played it 400 times. 400, whatever. Luckily, I get to spend some time with some of these people, and I got to spend a few minutes talking to James Taylor. This was the day after the infamous Feist night for me at Blues Fest, which we'll go on at a later date. But it wasn't a fun night. And then the next night we had James Taylor, who sold, 300 million records or something. Like, it's just, he's a crazy huge star. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. And where the night before, Leslie Feist wouldn't have anything to do with us or anybody or anything, and was just too cool for everybody and hated everybody, just etc. James Taylor is the exact opposite. And he says, at some point, we all get over ourselves. You sell your first gajillion albums, and you either get lost in who people think you are and that whole craziness, or you just go, look, it's wonderful. And he told me, I'll play Fire and Rain, I'll play any of those songs a million times for people, and I'm happy to do it, because I wouldn't be in the position I am in if it wasn't for people who love my songs and come out to see me. And I know every show there's a huge amount of people that have never seen me, never heard those songs, and I want to do it for them the way they want. And I think that's cool, and I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Some shows I want to see exactly the same thing, but for me, that's sort of belies just sort of why I do what I do, and I don't think I'm good enough, anyways, to sort of do my stuff. I always remember seeing a live video of the Eagles, and this was in their later years, and man, those guys are ridiculous musicians at being able to duplicate what they had done, and just a lot of vocal harmonies, and you listen to it like up close, and they just sat in these chairs, and it was an incredible thing to see these musicians just sort of as good as they are, and they're really good singers.
Oh, God.
They're just ridiculous to listen to and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and well, whatever. Lately, I've been going down a rabbit hole of watching videos on the Appalachian people, the mountain people, and their music, and bluegrass, obviously.
Huh.
I'm watching was it Bluegrass Underground in the Tennessee Caves. Those guys might be the best musicians. You know, I'm just really loving that old-timey American folk music from the Appalachian Mountains. It's John Cook discovered it a long time ago, but it's amazing the talent these guys have, and the clog dancing, and that whole million.
Yeah, that sort of indigenous sort of quality that they have, and sort of their accents, how it just sort of blends into that sort of, and of course they're the only tools that they essentially have is between their ears and their ears themselves. So like they don't have all these other these electronic tuners and stuff like that. It's all feel and stuff like that. It's incredible to watch some of these acts. Yeah, absolutely.
Like you said, the speech and all, I saw a little video of this University of Pennsylvania linguistics professor went and did a whole study on it. And they were talking about the Appalachians were first inhabited by the Scottish-Irish, Scots-Irish, and Scots-Irish. Because Britain was having trouble. They were a bit of a feisty lot, like to drink and fight a lot. So Britain first gave the Scots, the rowdy Scots, land in Ireland just to get them off the island for a little while. And then they were, I guess they had about 100 and a half years there, fighting, drinking, farming. And then they decided to go to the new land. And so that's where the Appalachian started, at least the Smoky Mountains and all, was the Scots-Irish. And they would say that, you know, when the Irish came over, they would build churches. And when the Scots came over, they would build schools. And when the Scots-Irish came over, they'd build distilleries. They like to fight and drink. But to hear the terms these people would use, one was Cy-Goglin. That's when you've built something and it's all crooked or like a crooked road. That's Cy-Goglin right yonder. That's the way they talk. I love it. I just was listening and mesmerized by their talk.
It's almost like alien-esque, eh? It's like
Cy-Goglin right down, or over yonder. Over yonder. I love yonder.
Yeah, I sometimes indulge myself when I'm on YouTube in a lot of old footage from the early 1900s, and it's just wonderful. And just the way you've been describing some of the words, you get that visual, just sort of that appeal, what these people were thinking back then, 1900. And a lot of them just stare at the camera, back at the camera.
It's true. I always find that so weird.
There's always one kid that just won't let it go and stuff like that.
Yeah, like today, you know, if you see a camera, you're going...
Right. It's like shoot the camera. Somebody's spying on me.
And then there's I've seen some videos recently that they take it around the turn of the century. Usually it's in New York, because the main populace. But they've taken the footage and reanalyzed the frames and stuff, so it looks good now. It's not jerky, not fast motion, and they've colorized. Man, it's so crazy. Like, when it's as clear as like almost a video today, when you see 1,900 people walking around and horses are the majority of things getting around.
So, well, have you seen the title that Peter Jackson redid all this World War I film?
I've heard about it. I haven't seen it.
So I got my brother the DVD. I've seen it before. So like they spent even more money on that, and so they stopped all the jitter, like the computer power and the rendering that must have gone on. It is ridiculous, and You should put it up. Sorry. You should see it. There's a trailer on there.
We will look at the Peter Jackson trailer for World War One. Do they get into the gore and stuff? Because that was pretty ugly war.
It's well worth to see it once, just for his ability to take all that old footage and turn it into. It's just like you're there. You see a lot of the soldiers eating in a field, and the teeth on them, and sort of that feel back. It just. Can
you imagine going into that thing knowing now what you know about the misery those guys had to suffer?
So there's a point in that film where their film is on a bunch of troops, and they actually went back to this specific location, and they're minutes away from being told that they have to go up over. So you see the looks on their faces, and they know something's coming down. And as the narrator is saying that in 2 minutes, 95% of what you're seeing now will not make it through the day. And there's specifically one soldier that is just burned in my memory. The look on his face about what's to come. It's just transcendent.
That was me before this reincarnation.
Exactly.
I no beef with anybody.
And they're waiting for the whistle. And Peter Jackson actually went back to that same area, and it's just incredible. It's just they're in a ditch.
I wonder if they told them 95% of you are not going to make this, but we need that to win this battle. I wonder if you go, I'm out of here. See,
it's chilling. It's just absolutely chilling. So to get even, this week I just dropped a video.
Back to music.
Yeah, back to music. Blah blah. Unless you wanted to sort of add to what I sort of was talking about.
No.
Since we're coming up to November the 11th.
That's true. This is it's October whatever it is today, 10th, 11th.
Mm-hmm. 11th.
It's 11th because it's Thanksgiving today. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm going to cook a turkey.
That sounds exciting. I think a lot of people are going to be cooking turkeys for the first time.
Smaller turkeys. And actually, there was an article I read about that. People don't want big turkeys anymore. You can't get small turkeys. Well, if you're feeding 4 people like we are this year, as opposed to 15 people like we normally would, not us, my sister does Thanksgiving, but you're not going to have a 25-pound turkey anymore.
Right, and talking about turkeys, let's get on to my song. So this comes from Koi Paradiso. I redid a mix this week of a song. The only thing I got to say about it, so the song ended up with no drums. And the song is, we've heard it before. We've had it, I think, a couple episodes when we were going back on Koi Paradiso. The song, we took out all the drums, and it was just Susie and I singing. And when I put the drums back on, because I just wanted something to put on my YouTube channel as a remix of this song, I listened to it with the drums, and it almost makes me sad that I didn't leave the drums on, because it sounds so freaking good. And Susie sounds like $1 million on this song. And I just sort of slightly updated it a bit, but I think you remember it.
This is from Koi Paradiso. A song I remember just because I see it as files all the time. OOTW. And I always go, what's OOTW?
Mm-hmm.
Out of this world.
Right. This is the one that had the mosquito or whatever like that. But I did a mix this week. So.
Okay. Well, so this will be brand new to me?
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds pretty cool.
I think you've heard we play when we didn't have this video. I think you've heard a version with the drums, but I just at random found one of some Brian's mixes.
Right. Okay, here we go. Out of this world.
Without forgiving, without love for the living, without no faith, it's fool's parasites. Delight. Come on, tell me you still really love me. So long ago. Sometimes I just can't feel a thing. Take me out of this world. Take me away. Sometimes I have to back away, all the way. I'm numb from all suffering. Take me out of this world, all the way. Sometimes I have to back away, all the way. You still love me. Sometimes I have to back away, all the way. I'm numb from all suffering. Take me out of this world. Take me away. Take me away. Can feel a thing. Take me out of this world, all the way.
I was going to say, it certainly sounds like Noodles that I would have done that you would just redo, right? You would just,
I enjoyed that. That was
that was
wonderful.
incredible, you know. And it's funny.
I didn't put that on my album.
But I know, but I'm just thinking that that incantation of it sounds more like a Byron thing, obviously, than the one that was on the album. But the one that's on the album is so different that I think it's still the one to put on there. Only because it's so different. There are songs, you know, that have the same drums in, out, groovy grooves. I think, you know, you're very good at producing really cool bass drum guitar grooves.
Yeah, it was cool.
So it's not like, you know, your career is short of those little segments.
I agree.
But I do really, really enjoy it and go, geez, I wish people would hear this one too.
Yeah, it was wonderful, and I agree. It just makes me just so like that was a sort of a you know, you're asking me about with Brian and having things changed around as opposed to how I thought and stuff like that. To me, like one part of me thinks, boy, you were brave to sort of take out take out the drums like that.
Such a radical departure, because that's even, I remember when you guys brought it back and said checked it, and I was like, what?
Yeah, he put the synth on and stuff, so it sounded totally different and stuff like that. So yeah, from that to that to that to that. So yeah, in one way it just makes me sad nobody's heard it, or I should have, because it's probably more Susie, because Susie sounds like $1 billion.
Man, when she hits those notes, it's like locked in.
Yeah.
The funny thing, just a little story here, is Susie, wonderful, wonderful singer, but she's also has a very deep faith. She's very religious. And when she started singing with Byron, I mean, I think no matter what, there was just a musical attraction there. But the subject matter, you know, Byron, myself, we're kind of cynics. We're happy guys in dark environments. You know, we like the spooky stuff, the weird shit, and Susie was not that. So I always found it funny that like how she's probably looking at some of these lyrics you're writing and going, wow.
Well, she was incredibly brave herself because she was very sort of strident in her faith and stuff like that, which was fine. I mean, like, whatever makes you happy. Great voice. Look, she was very brave. She basically did anything I asked her vocally. Like, she would try anything, anytime. And most of the time she would sing any lyric for me. There's tons of Susie that I have on my hard drive. So I think the trade-off was supposed to be at the end, we were supposed to do a couple of religious songs, or she wanted to, or in her head she wanted to do. But she wasn't so much a songwriter and stuff like that.
Sorry, I was gazing wistfully.
No, but that's what, and we never sort of. I guess it just sort of collided at one point that sort of never, because John was sort of scrubbing things in the background and stuff like that. So.
Yes, it's funny because it was even kind of like a moment in my life because I knew what was going on there. That was around the end of the whatever it was, the team of Byron, John, Susie, all this stuff. It was. I don't remember a whole lot about it other than there was a lot of not cool stuff going on all over the place.
Well, I think that John wanted to sort of finish off some of the stuff that I'd started or something like that. And at that point, he wasn't even in the studio and stuff like that. But the point was that back then, I knew he wasn't going to do anything with it, regardless if I gave it to him. I knew my experience with him, it was just going to be an empty road if I wasn't there to actually do the work and put it in. And so I think he took some stuff. He might have not. He might have. But I do know that I was the guy that had actually done the work and finished off. Yeah, the only person that was going to actually finish off any work that I had done was going to be me. So I at one point he wanted to do it, or he implied that he should take some of the stuff and work on it with Susie. But I think he had other things.
Yeah, it seemed like there was a lot of weird stuff going on around that time, which was unfortunate. But Susie, again, was so different than Byron in a sort of mental situation that it was a great collaboration because, you say, she would indulge you in your weirdness, and your lyrics were never overt in the sense that this or that. You always spoke in wordy kind of.
I think she was betwixt two worlds at that time as well. I think there was part of her that enjoyed sort of.
She never played in a band like on her own, or
no,
she
but
was just a singer.
I think she sort of liked to be indulged like that. And so like once a week she would show up at my apartment at the lobby in her car, and I would have I would print out a CD. We would listen to what I'd been working on that week, and that went on for like about a year. I'd give her a chocolate chip cookie. I always remembered, and played her some of the stuff I was working on. And that was the only thing she wanted to be able to do, was listen to what I was working on with her voice. So we had a lot of sessions like that.
Interesting.
But yeah, so there's I'm not floored, but floored by how much Susie's all over some of these hard drives that I have, and the ton of work that we did together. So this
right. So is there any current contact with Susie? Have you spoken to her? Have you?
No, so this is one of the things I want to do, is make sure that this stuff gets out with all this work. Like, it's either going to sit back there, and there's tons of other stuff that I haven't done and stuff like that. I actually Googled her name this weekend because I was looking for the correct spelling of her last name. And so I guess she's president of
Canadian Marketing Association or something.
No, the hotel industry of Canada. And I think she's been making some, because she has some recent pictures on Google about some COVID-related things, how it's affecting her industry and stuff like that. So she looks like a super professional. I guess she's got some kids of her own now and stuff like that.
Well, in a little related story, for about 10 years, I did videos for this association in Ottawa called the Association of Consulting Engineers in Canada. And she was their marketing head of marketing. And so kind of worked with her every year for about 10 years. And then I knew she left and went to the marketing association. She's just a go-getter. She's really intelligent.
Oh, absolutely.
She's beautiful.
Yeah.
She's a great singer.
Yeah.
Smart. So she's rocketing off. She's been married for about 10 years now. She has, I think, at least a couple of kids.
At least, yeah.
Anyways, like we all sort of drift off and live our lives and do our things, and some of us stay in touch, some of us don't. But Susie was with you for what, about 5-6 years, like in a collaboration sense?
At least for a couple of years. Yeah, I'd like to get back together. I don't know whether I'm brave enough sometimes. I mean, she's very...
I don't think she would want to do this again.
Do what?
Sing with you, do your stuff.
No,
I'm just saying, I don't think she would.
No, I wouldn't want her to. It's just she's totally probably on a different sort of. No, I'm just saying about sort of. I thought about sending her like that version and stuff like that. Just sort of say, there you go.
It's always neat to think of like muses and things that because you can do everything yourself if you need to, but it's always nice to have that other person to write for and all. And I know I've always bumped into young singers because I owned a studio for a while, and I'd always wait and think, I wonder if Byron would be interested in this voice, this color, And just recently, my friend, oh my God, why am I blanking on her name? She's such a good friend.
I think you gave me you played some YouTube stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm so embarrassed because here I am in the middle of the podcast and I'm blowing her name.
You were saying your name 100,000 times
I know.
before we came in here.
I'm sorry, I'm just blanking.
You even had a big Scrabble and you used her name. I said, Steve, we're not allowed to use names in Scrabble.
Damn.
You're like my mother. You're like my mother. This is what my mother does. This is the conversation.
I'm usually very good with names.
I have the conversation.
I don't know why I'm blank right now. This is definitely just a mind.
So in 1967, who did you sit behind in the public school? Do you remember?
Holy shit. Well, that would be in grade 1 or 2. No.
Did you guys sit in alphabetical order?
For the first couple of years, I do believe so.
So who would be sort of...
Well, it depends if it goes this way or this way.
I'm asking, can you remember?
No.
Okay, so you can't remember who...
I'm trying to think of my grade 1 teacher. My God, you're hitting me on these bad things right now.
You're as old as my mother when it comes to memory. Where does it go?
Same place that my talent goes.
So Susie, yeah, I want to let her in on this, but yeah, there's just part of me that doesn't need any drama at all. So I think at one point I'm going to have to will myself into sending her a link or something.
Yeah, and at the same time, it's like you're going out and killing citizens and sending her their fingers. No, it's like here's music that we used to do, and I personally don't think she'd be interested. You got to think, though, as a singer, that if you're not singing right now, you're missing it.
I agree. I think this is what I just played you. I think is beautiful, and I think she sounds like seriously $1 billion. And I'd love her to listen to it. That's how I feel about it.
It almost sounds like it's been auto-tuned because it's so pitch perfect.
I think part of it, I think there was a version of her that I had this sort of vocoder, which sometimes I use, and just trying to get that feel that I hear sometimes on the music that I play in my car. So, but yeah, despite that, I think she just sound. I think it probably was on parts of her because that was one of the things about it. I just get her to sort of. She was really good at improvising, and she didn't really hit the notes perfectly all the time. She was really good at doing it some of the times, but that's the thing about practicing, right? But she was really good at giving me like the first couple loops that I said. She was good at. She would try anything, and that was I think the.
Would she just come up with stuff, or you directing her to try this?
I'd give her some sort of hints, and then she would just sort of riff off that, and she'd always had no problem sort of just sort of.
So you gave her like a default melody.
Yeah, a couple verses, and then I'd always say, but I would plead her to just sort of go off on her own if she could, and she would do those things. So yeah,
I know we both used to love. I'm a very average musician guy. You're better than I am, but not much. And but we used to love bringing in like great musicians that focused on their thing and said, "Here's a track, do your thing." And we'd always sit back and go, "Hey, listen to him playing." So Steve Petico was always my favorite guy to do that with because he was a country shredder like no other in our area. and you just set him to going on tracks, and he just do insane stuff for 3.5 minutes, and you go, thank you, stop.
Well, when you have a group of really smart musicians, so you see these things like the Wrecking Crew and Muscle Shoals Studio and all those studios where it's just a group of guys that really know what they're doing. It's like the digital version of your band in a box, your Logic. It's got the guys with the greatest riffs. I see these videos of Brian Wilson with the Wrecking Crew in the studio while they're doing Pet Sounds. Yeah. And to have like Carol Kay on bass and Hal Blaine on drums. Is that the correct Hal Blaine on drums? Just these guys that you just sort of ask.
Tommy Tedesco.
Yeah, and so you're asking them to sort of do these little subtle moves and stuff like that, and it's like pressing a button on your Logic.
But it's better.
Oh, it's ridiculously better.
I always thought it was neat how you could, great musicians, great vocalists, great actors even. You could say, do it like you're 6 feet underwater with, a lionfish attached to your ear. And you go, gee, that sounds like it. They were able to interpret your moods and what you were looking for. This is why I know when you're always saying too much of me, you like to have that, just a whole different aspect of looking at your thing. And you go, I never thought of that. I mean, it's not that you can't play these things, but that's the beauty of collaboration in music.
There's a famous part of him making God Only Knows, and they're recording the backing tracks, and they're working on the middle section of God Only Knows. So So they originally had it, I think, half notes. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. So they were holding their notes, and then you can hear somebody in the band say, "We should just have a very sort of a short, bum, bum,
staccato
bum, 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 bum." And then you hear the band just all do it like that next time, and then you hear sort of, "Yeah, that's the way we're going to do it now."
Which leads me to another point: is that I always find it funny that all the glory is heaped on songwriters who basically go G, C, D, and go, baby, I love. I get it. The lyrics are what define music because every chord progression has been taken, every melodic invention has been raked over 1,000,000 times. So it comes down to your melody and your words. But the fact that a bunch of talented people take that C, D, and G, and turn it into something that is this oral landscape gets zero credit almost. Other than like arrangements of older pieces, whoever the older arrangers were doing it for, Sinatra or whatever, but nobody gets that credit anymore. Like we always said, even in our little Hooblers band, that Mike's a great, brilliant songwriter in that simplistic, folky kind of style. But in the rock band, we would just take that music and tear it apart and do our thing to it. Not that we're great musicians, but add our influence to it. And I think we would argue that was just important as the rest of it, if you like the totality of the song.
Yeah, I would say that's one of the top 3 reasons why bands break up.
For sure.
Guys not getting compensated for their contributions.
Yeah.
Or not being acknowledged and stuff like that. Yeah, totally understandable.
Yeah, if you think of just think Andy Potter, like Don't Fear the Reaper. You can't tell me that guitar riff is just as essential as any of the lyrics.
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking of the Wrecking Crew and the Sonny and Cher song, "The Beat Goes On."
Wasn't Glenn Campbell in that one too?
Yeah, and it might have been his story, but I think they just sort of had. So it's based on a groove, I think a bass guitar or something like that.
Well, it's Carol Kay who came up with that.
Yeah, she came up. So, but they were they didn't that. So they were working on the song before she came up with that. So it was the band. She actually came up with that, and as soon as she got that, so the band had spent a certain amount of time trying to massage the song, looking for that little pearl. And I think they played it a few times, and it wasn't until Carol Kay, if that's who came up with that sort of riff. As soon as they got the riff, that was it. They were able to lay the song down and stuff like that. So yeah, the whole band had to massage it, and one of the talented people in the band found the golden key.
I mean, I know both of us have experienced exactly that thing where you're recording. I don't write lyrics and stuff, but when I'm looking for a part, and you sort of like, you just sort of close your eyes and jump into a hole and start doing things. Now again, I'm very limited in what I can do, but you start going through your normal route of things, happy mistakes, and then something happens and you go, whoa in your mind, and you go back and you try to where was that original thing? We've always talked about, you're always chasing that original little thing that you heard because it was the most fresh thing ever at that particular time. And it's funny the way you chase that little nugget. And sometimes you get it, sometimes you make it better, sometimes it just never comes back.
Nice to have help. Yeah, I'm sure the Beatles missed each other once they went solo. Once they were sort of in a band with other people, and sort of John's looking for Paul, Paul's looking for John. So yeah, you're talking about contributions. I was just thinking about one of my songs from my first album, Serendipity, and I sort of think my favorite part is the middle part, those swirly strings in it and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And when I think about it, I think it's got my name on it. I wrote the song and stuff like that, but it's not my part. It's something I found off your keyboard. Something was... I found it by accident. I didn't write the part, that swirly string part. It was like whatever.
I thought I wrote it for that.
I don't know whether you wrote it.
What I did was, I
found it.
Was creating that part, but then by accident we played it, and then we had a second part that was offset by a little bit. Sure. And it was that doodle-doodle, like this kept rolling. That was like, man.
At some point I said that's cinema.
Well, I think both of us, like even more so than musically, I think like movie-ly. Yeah. Like in the sense of, I thought it was like The Wizard of Oz, the storm part.
I would never have done that in my own way or ever thought of that style and stuff like that. So like that's a very enjoyable thing. But I'm just talking about credit and stuff like that. Although you there's no name, your name's not.
Well,
you did the best part. You did the best part.
I think that still might be one of the best songs you've ever written.
No, but that middle section is just the highlight of that song.
It's a accumulation of great song, great parts, everything just seemed to work.
But you did it. Like when I listen to it.
I know what you're saying, but...
Yeah. But I always get a laugh, but it still got my name in my world. It's got my name on it.
Can you imagine if you went on and made like $100 million from that song? And you were living in some palatial mansion.
You would be.
And again, people would be talking about the song. They wouldn't be talking about that part.
I know.
Well, and so this is what I'm thinking, like when I hear Paul McCartney saying that, look, all I want is that for like songs like Yesterday, that maybe you put McCartney first. Because he even said, when you look it up online, you go, Yesterday, he said, it'll only show so many words. And it goes, Yesterday, written by Lennon.
No, he doesn't want to do that. It's not the rabbit hole he wants to go down.
I don't blame him. I don't blame him, but in a sense I go, yeah, but you're Paul McCartney.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, seriously? Seriously?
Yeah. I mean, I would love to be so well known that people see your name first and still associate with me.
That's your issue?
I know. But, I would bow down to his wishes than I would any political leader in the world.
It's just an incredibly big rabbit hole to go down, because how many songs can Lennon say? You weren't in the room. Like, what are the parameters that we're looking at here, Charlie Brown? Like, how far does it go down?
I know, it's kind of like when Kate Moss says about how hard her life is in her 32,000 square foot home. You go, just a sec.
Yeah. So I actually heard an interview about Paul McCartney. I think I heard him. Interview with Sean Lennon, because this is the anniversary of John would have been 80 years old. So Sean on YouTube interviewed Elton John and Paul McCartney, and I think Paul McCartney made some reference to how sort of famous he was, and he goes he made some sort of reference to he has to sometimes shake his head because sometimes he thinks he doesn't have enough awards. And he sort of mentioned, he said, wait a minute, I'm Paul McCartney, how many more awards do I need? So it's just sort of in that vein.
At this point, you should just throw everything away and just float in the air.
Absolutely.
I knew it all the time.
I've got the answer.
Yeah. Can you imagine, like, we always talk, talk about fame and musicians that have got to that level. His level is like 10 steps above everybody else. It must be so bizarre. And I know I say this all the time. It must be so bizarre.
I don't know anybody on the planet that has been as famous as he has been all the time since he was like 17 or 18, however old he was when they first did. And since then, he's always been an ex-Beatle. And yeah, you see all these old videos of him, and there's just crowds galore around him and stuff like that. Like, he's been famous all his life.
Well, I mean, the fame thing is one thing. You know, what must be so bizarre is thinking that all of my output is the background to the world's life growing up. Like, everybody's sentimentality is linked to my songs. Like, truthfully, if you wanted to talk about who has that thing they can take. Yeah, Elton John, Paul McCartney.
I've seen a couple of recent interviews with McCartney talking about the way that most human beings greet him for the first time and stuff like that. And he's very used to it, but he has changed pretty well everybody's life on the planet with his music. And yeah, people...
Did you see the famous video that was played? I think it was about 3 years ago. The Grammy parties, you know, with all the hip-hop rappers and winners. They had a party afterwards, and it was, you know, a very exclusive party for the Grammy winners. And there's a video on the street of this guy following around Beck.
Oh yeah, he couldn't get into the party. Yeah,
and they wouldn't let him in the door because the guy didn't know who he was. And Paul McCartney, because I never hear him brag, but he looked at me and said, "Oh," he said, "VIP only." He said, "How much more VIP do you have to be?" Oh yeah. I wonder if this doorman might have been watching this and going, "Oh no, what did I do?"
Forever. God love him, but I still say sort of Paul McCartney, sort of after he got busted in Japan for his pot and stuff like that. That was sort of the nadir of sort of his brilliant solo output, as far as I'm concerned. But his best video in the last 20 years, you have to go check it online, there's a half-hour video of Paul McCartney making mashed potatoes. Seriously, for sure. It is almost beyond, like, it is almost beyond, if you know Paul McCartney, it's just so fun to watch. It's just sort of Liverpudlian sort of, and it's just sort of neat to see him just sort of be like, make mashed potatoes. I think it's sort of a brilliant sort of avant-garde video and stuff like that. I
heard all the other videos.
It entertained me, because there was a time where he came out with a video in the 90s, and I think it was his compilation LP, and he did a song for it, and he stood on a cliff with wind, and he was playing his guitar while the storm was coming in, and I guess that's the jump the shark part for me, for Mr. McCartney. Yeah, I couldn't.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I forget what the song is. Yeah, Mr. McCartney.
No, well, there was a time when I just kind of drifted away, you know, from my youth and things I really loved in my youth. That was probably during my punk scene, the Clash, and that kind of thing I was into. It's funny hearing, you know, how much I love the Clash, hearing Joey Strummer sing "Phony Beatlemania has bitten the dust," and being so conflicted, going like, I love the Clash, but phony Beatlemania.
So that stuff was good, but it was never good to listen to when I was growing up, because I listened to the Walkman a lot. So in the 80s, I walked a lot, I rode my bike a lot, and so McCartney, one of his great albums in stereo was Ram, the one from '71 that had Uncle Albert on it. And that was just a wicked album to listen to in stereo on your Walkman. So I listened to that.
Got so many great songs you've forgotten about. Like, just yesterday I heard Junior's Farm on
wicked. Just wicked.
And there's parts in there I don't even remember.
Yeah, he's got that. He's always got those good tag endings too, eh? Because he goes into halftime at the end and he does that McCartney scream, "Take me back, I want to go back."
It's funny that even though he's Paul McCartney, there's some things he does that I just go, I heard you do that before. Any artist, you know, if they keep doing that thing they do so much, sometimes his melodies, his song ideas can get a little sappy. You know, like I think Spencer got me "Memories Almost Full," one of his latest records ever.
Yeah, it just becomes too much McCartney after a while.
It's like, do you think that late in Beethoven's life they're going?
Yeah, but I would say, as far as McCartney, anybody doing a solo album, I still think, and I haven't listened to all those albums toward the end, but he was always good for 2 or 3 songs out of the album. Like the whole album, there was always 2 or 3 that I've always gone, oh my God, this is good. This is just what I love about Paul McCartney. And I always find the albums more hard to digest.
Yeah, at least you're still doing it.
I would say we're done. I'd say we
blew right through that.
Yeah, we blew right through it.
Oh my God. And I'm going to try to cut up a lot of those little ones because we are now on to the freeform podcasts. We did get to listen to Out of This World today with Susie's Out of This World vocals.
It was.
Yeah, it was. We're going to say Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We're going to see you next week. Next week we'll start our Christmas push, so I'm sure...
Contact the wires. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, you know what? Sorry, Halloween is coming up.
We have a song.
Yes.
You gotta play that Shifter song.
Shifter, Lucifer.
Do you have a version of that Shifter? Do you have a
online? Yeah, it's on YouTube.
Yeah, but do you have a version? Or do I have to rip it from YouTube? Or put it on the YouTube channel?
Oh, okay. Well, I'll send you a WeTransfer. It's on a drive somewhere.
Please.
But you can't download things from YouTube?
I can rip it. I just do I have one of my video editing things, a screen capture and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
I just wonder about the audio. I grabbed the audio off the system, but I just don't know. Am I losing any generations if I just take the audio off
YouTube?
Your version and stuff like that? I don't think it makes a difference.
No, as long as your capture software is doing, 48 kilohertz.
I'm assuming so.
And
that came from
no, it's
capture and stuff like that.
I don't mind sending you a WeTransfer anyways, but we have to plan something for Halloween. Maybe we'll dress up. Bye.